Minecraft 1.21 is the Tricky Trials update with the Crafter, Trial Chambers, the Breeze, Wind Charges, the Maze, and so much more. My name is Slime and I'm here to give you the best guide possible to all the changes. The Crafter is a new block crafted from a crafting table, a dropper, 2 redstone dust, and 5 iron ingots. It's directional and places just like you'd place a dropper, with its front face towards you. Once placed, you can break it by hand, but the right tool for the job is a pickaxe. The Crafter is a way to use redstone mechanisms to craft items, just like you'd normally craft them in a crafting table. Interact with the Crafter to look at its contents and set up the crafting grid. You can add items into this crafting grid like for a crafting table, but you cannot take the resulting item out. Instead, when the Crafter receives a redstone pulse, it will drop the crafted item out its front side, or move it into another inventory if the Crafter is pointed at another container. Think of it exactly like a dropper. If the items in the Crafter do not make up a valid crafting recipe, the Crafter fails and does nothing. If there are residual items in the craft, such as for crafting a cake, the remaining items are ejected together with the crafted one. Let's look more at the Crafter interface. You do not have a recipe book here, so you've got to know the recipe you're trying to make. To make some recipes easier, you can also toggle slots on and off in the user interface. Toggling a slot off means it can never contain any item, so items inserted into the Crafter will avoid that slot. The Crafter is also a container that can be interacted with by hoppers and droppers, so you can automatically insert the right items for a craft. When this happens, items will be added in order of priority. First, any empty slots, starting from the top left and moving down by rows. If there are no empty slots, items will prioritize adding into the smallest stack that will fit. Hoppers can also be used to pull items back out of the ingredients in the Crafter, and will then pull them out in the regular order that items would normally be taken out from a chest. Comparators can also be used with Crafters. They will show a signal strength of 1 for each non-empty or toggled slot in the Crafter. That means a full craft with all unused slots toggled off will always have a signal strength of 9. One last difference between the Crafter and the crafting table is that the contents of a Crafter is shared, so multiple players changing it at once will show up for all players. New variants of tuff blocks and a whole new set of copper blocks have been added. The new tuff blocks include stair, slab, wall, and chiseled versions of plain tuff. Tuff can also be polished either by crafting them in a 2x2 pattern or by using a stone cutter. Polished tuff also has stairs, slabs, and walls with the regular crafting recipes. Polished tuff turns into tuff bricks on another craft of 2x2 or in the stone cutter. Tuff bricks have stairs, slabs, walls, and also a chiseled variant. All of these tuff blocks can be crafted using a stone cutter. The next set of blocks are copper variant blocks. All of these blocks of course exist in all 4 stages of oxidization, and all of them can also be waxed to halt that process, scraped to let the process continue, or scraped again to deoxidize. Waxing and scraping any of them also counts for the wax on, wax off advancement. Let's start with the chiseled copper, which is crafted from 2 cut copper slabs or by using a stone cutter. The next one is the copper grate, which is a new transparent block. 4 copper blocks in a diamond pattern crafts 4 copper grates, but it can also be crafted more efficiently using the stone cutter, which gives you 4 copper grates for a single copper block. Like many other transparent blocks, copper grates do not conduct redstone power. Copper grates can also be waterlogged. They act just like leaves and mangrove roots when this happens. Water is fully contained inside the block and doesn't flow out any side. The copper bulb is a new light block and redstone mechanism crafted from 3 copper blocks, a blaze rod, and a redstone dust, which gives you 4 copper bulbs. The bulb is a redstone sensitive lamp, but instead of needing power to be lit like a redstone lamp, the bulb switches state immediately when it receives a redstone signal. This makes it a very compact T flip-flop, albeit one that causes light changes. When used for lighting, the different levels of oxidization have different light levels. Pure copper starts with light level 15 like other full block light sources. This reduces to 12 for exposed, 8 for weathered, and 4 for oxidized copper bulbs. Scraping the bulb with an axe while it is lit makes it brighten immediately. The bulb does not conduct redstone power, and when powered, a small redstone crystal in the center of the block will light up. A comparator reading a copper bulb will output a maximum signal strength for a lit bulb and no power for an unlit bulb. There are also new doors and trapdoors made of copper. The Despite being made of metal, they function more like wooden doors and can be opened and closed without needing redstone power. Copper doors can also be broken down by zombies on hard difficulty like wooden doors. Right-clicking them with an axe or honeycomb also defaults to opening or closing them. You'll need to hold shift to use the scraping or waxing function. Trial chambers are new structures that generate buried underground in all overworld biomes except the deep dark, starting at heights between -40 and -20. They are pretty common and made out of copper blocks and tuff, including the new ones that we just talked about. In order to find one, you can trade with a cartographer villager to buy an explorer map to a trial chamber. They are sold by journeyman level cartographers, which is level 3. Trial chambers vary in size and are all procedurally generated, including corridors leading to different challenge rooms. They have different entrance rooms with trees and bedrooms with supply chests and barrels that can contain useful items for the fight. Corridors lead to other parts of the chambers with an atrium with big murals, as well as different chamber types with somewhat randomized contents. The chamber types are assembly, eruption, pedestal, and slanted. Throughout all of them, you'll find trial spawners and vaults. There are also traps, including dispensers with arrows in the corridors and dispensers with many different potential items in the chambers, including arrows, snowballs, eggs, fire charges, various splash potions, and various lingering potions. Each trial chamber structure has 3 specific mobs selected from categories: a melee mob, a small melee mob, and a ranged mob. Melee mobs are selected from zombies, husks, spiders, and slimes. The small melee mob is either cave spiders, baby zombies, or silverfish. And finally, the ranged mob is either skeletons, strays, or bogged, a new type of skeleton. Each trial chamber structure only has one of each of those, so for instance the whole structure might use husks as melee mobs, cave spiders as small melee, and strays as ranged mobs. All the spawners in that structure will then use those types, and the decorations around the spawner areas showcase what type of mob is chosen. There are also spawners that always spawn the same type of mob, the new breeze. More on that later. One thing to note here is that regular mob spawning does not happen inside the bounding boxes of the trial chamber pieces, so the only mobs you'll encounter are those from the trial spawners. So let's talk about those trial spawners. The trial spawner is a new type of spawner block that is different from the regular monster spawners in several important ways. The number of mobs spawned by a trial spawner is not fixed. Depending on how many players in survival or adventure mode are nearby, the level of challenge will increase. Trial spawners only activate when players are in line of sight. Mobs spawn in line of sight of the spawner and regardless of the normal light level requirements for those mobs. All mobs spawned by a trial spawner are also persistent and will not despawn. Every time the trial spawner detects a new player nearby, the challenge level will increase. It'll then stay at that level until the encounter has been completed by killing all the mobs. When all the mobs have been defeated, the trial spawner will eject a reward and then go into a cooldown mode for 30 minutes before becoming available for another round of fighting. Those rewards are a 50% chance of a supply item, and a 50% chance of getting a new item called a trial key. The rewards are also scaled up by the number of players involved in the encounter, and all players get the same type of loot. So if one player gets a trial key, everyone will get a trial key. Trial spawners are very hard to break, taking 250 seconds to break, or more than 4 minutes. It also doesn't have a correct tool, so the time stays the same regardless of tools and enchantments. If you do break them, they drop nothing, and unlike regular spawners, you also don't get any XP drops. Trial spawners can only be found in trial chambers. If you place them in creative mode, just like regular spawners, they have no mob type by default, and you can set one by interacting with a spawn egg. Those keys then. They're used to open another new block called the vault. The vault is a loot container with some important differences to regular chests. One difference is that the vault requires a key to open, in this case the trial key. To unlock the vault, interact with the key on the vault block. The other major difference is that much like an ender chest, the contents of a vault is per player, which means that each player can unlock each vault once, getting the loot inside. After unlocking a vault, you'll never be able to get more loot from that particular vault, but if you're playing on a multiplayer server, other players will still be able to open that vault. There's no maximum limit to the number of players who can loot a vault. When you approach a vault that you have not unlocked, a stream of orange particles will flow from your position to the vault. The vault block has a keyhole on the front that will open if any player who has not opened the vault yet gets within 4 blocks, and close if all such players step more than 4.5 blocks away. The state change can be observed by an observer. The vault outputs a light level of 6 by default and 12 when the keyhole is open. Within the vault block you can also see an item display. This shows the possible items that players can obtain from looting the vault. However, the display is not connected to what you'll actually get when opening the vault. Once you interact, the loot is selected from the vault's loot table. That is to say, you cannot time interacting with the vault with when a desired item is shown. Once you have interacted to open the vault, the display switches to show what is being ejected. The vault cannot be obtained or moved in survival mode. Mining it is equally slow as mining a trial spawner and drops nothing, and it is fully resistant to explosions. The vaults also come in an upgraded version called the Ominous Vault, which requires a separate key and holds better loot. We'll get back to that later when talking about ominous events. Breezes are hostile mobs with 30 health, that is 15 hearts, which only spawn from trial spawners in the trial chambers. It does not spawn naturally. The breeze moves around by sliding and leaping, where a leap can cover quite long distances. It attacks using a ranged attack called a wind charge. This projectile deals a small amount of damage on impact, but also causes an explosion called a wind burst when it hits either an entity or a block. Wind bursts do not damage blocks, but knocks back entities in the area several blocks. They can also activate certain redstone activated blocks, including opening or closing doors, trapdoors and fence gates, toggling levers, pressing buttons and ringing bells. Wind bursts also extinguish candles, including those placed in cakes. Iron doors and trapdoors do not get affected by wind bursts, and neither do blocks that are held opened or closed by means of a redstone signal. Just like a gassed fireball, the wind charge can be hit to reflect it to a new direction. Breezes deflect most projectiles, so you'll have to chase it down or reflect its wind charges to hit it. Like for other mobs, you can find spawn eggs for the breeze in the creative inventory, with a purple look. The breeze drops a new item called a breeze rod. Each breeze drops 1 to 2 of the breeze rods, with an additional 1 to 2 for each level of looting. Each breeze rod can be crafted into 4 wind charges. A wind charge can be activated to spawn a projectile much like the breeze's wind charges. Using a wind charge has half a second cooldown, and they can also be fired from a dispenser. They activate redstone components on impact and also deal damage on direct hits and a small explosion effect of knockback. The knockback is 10% more powerful than that of a breeze, but has much smaller area of impact. Being launched by a wind charge, knockback also has an effect on your fall damage. You will only take fall damage as if you fell from the height you were at when the wind charge hit. That means if you land back where you started, you'll take no fall damage at all. Bad Omen has been expanded and reworked to give access to an optional experience in trial chambers. Instead of getting Bad Omen directly from killing a pillager captain, you now get the effect from consuming a new item called an ominous bottle. Instead of stacking up effects, you get a different level of the effect directly from consuming an ominous bottle of that level. The Bad Omen icon has also changed. Pillager captains now drop ominous bottles of a random level from 1 to 5. Alternatively, you can also get one of level 1 or 2 from a trial chamber vault. The bottles stack up to 64 and shatter when consumed. Another difference in this version is that Bad Omen doesn't immediately trigger a raid on a village when you enter it. Instead, it will change into a Raid Omen effect which lasts for 30 seconds. Once the 30 seconds are up, a raid will start at the location where the Raid Omen was initially triggered. This doesn't mean all the mobs spawn there, but rather that it doesn't help to run away from the village. However, just like any other effect, you can dispel the Raid Omen by drinking milk. The big new thing with Bad Omen, however, is that it can also transform into a Trial Omen effect when you enter into the detection range of a trial spawner while under the effect of Bad Omen. Trial Omen has a duration of 15 minutes for each level of Bad Omen. When you have Trial Omen, you are surrounded by particles. When a player with Trial Omen is in range of a trial spawner, that spawner will turn into an ominous trial spawner if it's either not on cooldown or if it wasn't ominous last time it was active. In this case, it also resets the cooldown. When a spawner becomes ominous, it will despawn any existing mobs it spawned and reset the challenge. It will then stay ominous until it has been defeated and its cooldown has been finished. If you defeat an ominous trial spawner, you get a different set of loot as a reward. Notably, instead of a trial key, you can get an ominous trial key. While regular trial spawners have a 50% chance of giving a trial key, the chance is only 30% for an ominous trial key. This type of trial key can be used to unlock some unique ominous vaults that can be found in some harder to access parts of the trial chambers. Ominous trial spawners glow blue instead of orange and emit soul flames instead of regular flames. They often spawn mobs equipped with weapons and armor with armor trims from the trial chambers. The armor and weapons are often enchanted, and none of this equipment can drop when the mobs are killed. For mob types that can't wear armor, you instead get twice as many mobs. In addition to spawning armored enemies, ominous trial spawners also spawn potions and projectiles on top of unsuspecting players and mobs. Based on their location in a trial chamber, a trial spawner will select a random set of projectiles to spawn, which will always include a single type of lingering potion from a set of possible effects. Those lingering potions can also include some new potion effects. The wind charged effect makes any affected entity emit a wind burst on death. The weaving effect makes any affected entity spread cobweb blocks on death, causing 2 to 3 cobweb blocks to be placed, which can also replace replaceable blocks like short grass or dead bushes. Entities affected by weaving can also move more efficiently through cobwebs. The oozing effect makes entities spawn up to 2 slimes on death. Slimes are naturally immune to the oozing effect. And the infested effect makes any affected entity have a 10% chance to spawn 1 or 2 silverfish when hurt. Silverfish are naturally immune to this effect. These potions aren't exclusive to trial chambers either. With a base of awkward potions, wind charged can be brewed with a breeze rod, weaving with a cobweb, oozing with a slime block, and infested with a stone block. These potions only have 1 level and cannot be extended. However, you can turn them into splash potions and lingering potions. Using the trial key on a vault gives you a set of unique loot, including a new Guster banner pattern and a new Bolt armor trim smithing template, which is duplicated using a base block of unoxidized copper or waxed copper. Opening an ominous vault also has unique loot, notably the Flow banner pattern and the new Flow armor trim smithing template, which is duplicated using a breeze rod. The most unique reward, however, is a new block called the Heavy Core. This loot also includes stronger ominous potions of levels 3 to 5, enchanted books with some rare enchantments including some of the new Mace Enchantments we'll get to in a minute, and enchanted golden apples. The loot of the pots around the trial chambers contain 3 new pottery shards: Flow, Guster, and Scrape. You can craft 2 of the new items together, the Breeze Rod with the Heavy Core. This forms a new weapon, the Mace. The mace has a base attack damage of 5, which is slightly weaker than a diamond sword, and an attack speed of 0.6, leading to a time between full strength attacks of 1 and 2/3 of a second. It has 500 durability. The special thing about the mace is that if you land a strike while falling, the damage increases depending on how far you have fallen. This starts happening after 1.5 blocks of falling. The first 3 blocks of fall height give 4 damage per block for a total of at most 12. The next 5 blocks give 2 damage per block for a total of at most 22 that far, and after that each fallen block only adds 1 point of damage. If you do land the hit, your fall damage height is reset to that height, as if you had used a wind charge at that height. So if you land shortly after, you take no fall damage. When successfully hitting a target, your vertical momentum will completely reset in addition to the fall height resetting. The mace has a special effect for a strong attack called a smash attack, which includes a new explosive particle effect and a strong knockback effect that knocks back other entities around the target you hit. Once the mace starts breaking, it can be repaired using breeze rods in an anvil. Many existing enchantments can now work on maces, including Mending, Unbreaking, Smite, Bane of Arthropods, Fire Aspect, and Curse of Vanishing. There are also 3 new mace-specific enchantments. Density comes in levels 1 through 5 and can be gained both as books in loot and directly from the enchanting table. Each level of density adds half a point of damage per fallen block to smash attacks. The Breach enchantment comes in levels 1 through 4 and can also be found both on books in loot and in the enchanting table. It is used to remove part of the armor of the target, removing 15% armor effectiveness per level. And finally, the Windburst enchantment comes in levels 1 through 3 and can only be found on books in the Ominous Vaults. Maces with Windburst will emit a Windburst on hitting an enemy with a smash attack, which can launch you back up into the air. The strength of the Windburst is increased with each level of the enchantment. You should expect to be knocked up 7 blocks per enchantment level, which comes out as 21 blocks up at level 3. Since Windburst also doesn't negate fall damage like wind charges do, that is just under lethal damage with no armor. So you better have your feather falling on or your water bucket at the ready. The density and breach enchantments are counted as damage enchantments and are exclusive with each other and with other damage enchantments like smite and bane of arthropods. As a point of reference, with maximum density, you need to fall about 150 blocks to one hit kill a warden. Let's have a more detailed look at the heavy core. If you don't want to craft a mace out of it, you can also place it. This gives you a block the same size as a player head. Mining a heavy core is done most efficiently with a pickaxe. They are fully resistant to all explosions but can be moved by pistons. It can also be waterlogged. Like other blocks, they stack up to 64. On a map, heavy cores have a silver color. The Bogged is a skeleton variant much like the Stray. They are mossy and mushroom covered and can spawn naturally in the darkness in swamp and mangrove swamp biomes in addition to spawning from trial spawners in trial chambers. Bogged now replace the spawns of 30% of the skeletons in the swamps. One difference from strays and husks is that Bogged do not require sky access to spawn. They can also spawn in caves or other dark areas in those biomes. Bogged have 16 health, that is 8 hearts compared to the 20 or 10 hearts of regular skeletons. They also attack slower, 3.5 seconds between attacks compared to 2 seconds. This shrinks to 2.5 seconds when playing on hard mode, compared to the 1 second of a regular skeleton. Arrows shot by the Bogged inflict the poison effect, and they have a chance of dropping poison arrows when killed by players with the same chance that a stray drops a slowness arrow. Like many other undead mobs, they burn when directly exposed to sunlight. There's also another interaction. Shearing a Bogged will cause the mushrooms to disappear and 2 random mushroom items to drop. Bogged spawn eggs can of course be found in the creative inventory, looking a bit like slightly green tinted skeleton spawn eggs. There are also a number of new advancements. Minecraft Trials Edition for entering a trial chamber. Underlock and key for unlocking a vault with a trial key. Revaulting for unlocking an ominous vault with an ominous trial key. Blowback for killing a breeze by returning a wind charge. This one is a challenge advancement which gives 40 experience points as a reward. Who needs rockets for using a wind charge to launch yourself up at least 8 blocks. Crafters crafting crafters for being near a crafter when it crafts a crafter. Lighten up for scraping off a copper bulb to make it brighter. And overkill for dealing 50 hearts of damage in a single hit using a mace, like one hit killing an iron golem. This is also a challenge advancement that gives 50 experience points of reward. Killing Bogged and breezes now counts towards the Monster Hunter advancement and is also now required for the Monsters Hunted advancement. The Flow and Bolt armor trims now grant the Crafting a New Look advancement. How Did We Get Here now also requires Infested, Oozing, Weaving, Wind Charged, Raid Omen and a Trial Omen in addition to everything already required. And a Furious Cocktail now requires Infested, Oozing, Weaving and Wind Charged. This version adds 20 new paintings, including 5 from Mojang artist Sarah Boving. Unpacked is a 4x4 painting based on the pack.png of seed hunting community fame. Humble pictures 2 villagers in front of a house in a 2x2 format, a parody of the American Gothic painting. Baroque is another 2x2 painting picturing a decorated pot, a cake, and a sunflower. Prairie Horse is a 1x2 painting, a parody of a painting called The Cowboy. And Meditative pictures the now removed rose in a nod towards Salvador Dali's Meditative Rose painting. The remaining 15 paintings added just in time for Minecraft's 15-year anniversary are made by Christopher Zetterstrand, who also painted the original paintings for the game. Many of these paintings are 3x3 and a couple are 3x4, formats which previously did not exist in the game. Let's start with the 3x3s. End Boss is based on a painting called Consider It, a skeleton in a brick archway. Tides is a person sitting by the sea, based on the painting Oh, the Sea. Fern is a fern on a desk. Sunflowers are some potted plants on a table. Khotan pictures a golden apple on a string and a glistening melon sliced, based on a painting by Juan Sánchez Khotan. Owl Lemons features an owl in a box next to some lemons, based on the painting Lemons and Owl. Cave Bird shows a cave in a cliff with a bird flying overhead. And Bouquet shows a flower bouquet next to a stairway with a person sitting beside it. Let's move to the two 3x4 paintings. Backyard is based on The Backyard, showing a brick archway with two women sitting in the yard. And Pond is based on Death and the Maiden, picturing a maiden and a skeleton in a pond. 4 of the new paintings are 4 blocks wide and 2 blocks tall. Passage is based on a painting called The Passage, showing a skeleton of a man and a large animal in a wooden passageway. Changing is from the Change of a Set painting, showing a person changing clothes in front of some set pieces. Finding is based on The Find, showing a man digging for something. And Low Mist is based on the painting with the same name, showing an inside-out look of mountaintops. And finally, a 4x4 painting called Orb is based on The Orb, showing an orb of light in the dark forest. A couple of other notable gameplay changes in this version. For fighting in those trial chambers, when holding an axe and a shield, the game no longer prioritizes scraping copper blocks over holding up the shield. And boats can now be put on leads. This works both for regular boats and for chest boats, providing an easy way to bring all your plunder across the ocean. Yarr! You can now ride things through portals. When riding another entity, you also completely skip the waiting time for being transported through the portal, instead passing through immediately. This lets you do things like riding minecarts through portals. A non-player entity entering a portal can now generate the portal on the other side if it doesn't already exist. For the end portal, the obsidian platform no longer deletes blocks when it is regenerated on entering the end. Those blocks now drop instead. And status effects now carry over properly when returning to the overworld from the end. You can now also use ender pearls to go through portals. This does what you'd expect for nether portals and entering the end, but provides some special functionality when leaving the end, since non-player entities end up at the world spawn rather than at a player-specific spawn point. Witches now always drop redstone, in addition to other drops. Without looting, the amount of redstone is from 4 to 8. This increases with at most 1 for each level of looting, for a total of 4 to 11 at looting 3. Animal panic has changed, with animals now panicking for 2 seconds after taking damage, which is down from 4. Pandas, wolves, and adult polar bears now panic from cactus, freezing, fire, and lightning bolt damage, while baby polar bears and all other animal types still panic from many other damage sources, but now also including the ones I just listed. Some changes to enchantments. In the hand of a mob, a fire aspect weapon no longer sets you on fire even if you block the attack with a shield. A number of fixes have been made to sweeping attacks, so they now properly ignite mobs when combined with fire aspect, deal the right amount of damage when combined with mob type specific enchantments like smite, and properly trigger thorns. Speaking of thorns, many mob types that were unaffected by thorns are now affected, including guardians, goats, evokers, llamas, cats, and ocelots. The burn time reduction of fire protection now stacks, which means that having 2 pieces of fire protection 4 is now sufficient to instantly stop burning when stepping out of fire or lava. And the knockback reduction of blast protection now stacks, which means that having 2 pieces of blast protection 4 is sufficient to completely remove all knockback. And blocks placed by Frostwalker now emit a vibration that skulk sensors can pick up, a block placed vibration of frequency 13. This version also adds new music. The music was composed by 3 returning composers, Lena Rain, Kumi Tanioka, and Aaron Sheriff, and include 9 new background tracks and 3 new music discs. The discs are Precipice by Aaron Sheriff, which can be found with a rare chance in standard vaults and has a comparator output of 13. Creator by Lena Rain has a comparator output of 12 and can be found with a rare chance in Ominous Vault. And a music box version of Creator can be found with a rare chance inside the decorated pots of Trial Chambers, and has a comparator output of 11. The background music tracks are Featherfall by Aaron Sheriff, which plays in Badlands, Cherry Groves, Flower Forests and Lush Caves, as well as being in the main rotation that can play in biomes without biome-specific music. Deeper by Lena Rain plays in the Deep Dark and in Dripstone Caves. Two new songs by Lena Rain have been added that play in Dripstone Caves, Groves, Jagged Peaks and Stony Peaks. Eld Unknown and Endless. Poco Poco by Kumi Tanioka plays in Dripstone Caves, Groves, Jagged Peaks and Snowy Slopes. And 4 other songs have been added to the list of songs that play in biomes that do not have a specific music set. Komorebi by Kumi Tanioka. Puzzle Box by Aaron Sheriff. Watcher by Aaron Sheriff. And Jakusoku by Kumi Tanioka. All these background tracks have also been added to the main menu music, replacing the previous update tracks there. In other sound news, there are 4 new cave sounds in this version, adding to the 19 already present. The piston sound now has a lower volume and attenuation distance to reduce the amount of ear-shattering clank when using redstone machinery. In visual news, the models of moving entities and entities just loaded in are no longer sometimes offset. This was a long-standing bug that was sometimes visible on shulkers when arriving at an end city, or a minecart and its passenger that were already moving when they loaded in, which would often show up at the wrong location. In a fix for another long-standing bug, the Ender Dragon death animation no longer renders broken. And taking a map out of an item frame now properly removes the green marker. And in the user interface, the main menu background is now a Tricky Trials panorama featuring a trial chamber. The attributes listed in tooltips for items no longer list the same thing for all the armor slots for effects that work in multiple slots. Instead, modifiers that work when the item is equipped in any slot are shown as when equipped. Those that work when the item is held in either hand are shown as when held, and those that work when the item is worn in an armor slot are shown as when worn. In multiplayer news, a server can now have custom links that are shown on the pause menu. If there are any links from the server, the menu will have a new button called Server Links. These links can be any custom links, but can also use some built-in functionality to report bugs about a server to the admins of that server. In Realms news, the owner of a realm is no longer the only player who can upgrade that realm. Any invited player can now join the realm in a new version to upgrade that realm to that version. And the main realm screen now shows all players online on a realm as their player skin, and hovering that display now shows their name and skin. And with that, we are at the end of the changes in Minecraft 1.21. If you appreciated this video, please do drop it a like, since it takes a huge amount of time and effort to make these videos. If you're also interested in the massive amount of technical changes for data packs in this version, like data-driven enchantment, keep an eye out for a separate video about that here on the channel. But that's all for this one. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Sliced Lime, and I'll see you next time.